Welcome to Iraqi Dinar News, where you receive real and authentic updates about the Iraqi dinar. If you want to stay informed with moment-by-moment developments, make sure to subscribe to the channel and like the video. Thank you for joining us once again, as we take a careful and professional look at the latest developments coming out of Iraq. Today we are discussing an important political update that has attracted significant attention among those who closely follow Iraq's economy and the future of the Iraqi dinar. As always, our goal is to separate confirmed developments from speculation, explain what current events may mean for Iraq's financial outlook, and provide balanced analysis based on available information rather than rumors or unrealistic expectations. According to the latest developments, Iraq's parliament has officially returned from recess, marking the beginning of an important period of political activity. Prime Minister Ali al-Zaidi is now entering what many observers describe as a crucial window of approximately 2 weeks to complete the remaining work on forming and organizing his government before a planned visit to Washington in the middle of July. Reports also indicate that Parliament is expected to approve the remaining ministerial appointments by July 5, allowing the government to present itself as more complete and politically organized before engaging in high-level international discussions. This sequence of events has naturally generated renewed interest among followers of the Iraqi dinar, because political stability has long been viewed as one of the key foundations necessary for broader economic reforms. However, it is important to emphasize from the very beginning that while political progress can contribute positively to investor confidence and economic planning, no official announcement has confirmed any immediate change in the value of the Iraqi dinar. Any discussion regarding future currency policy remains speculative unless confirmed by Iraq's monetary authorities. To better understand why today's developments matter, it is useful to examine the broader context. Government formation in Iraq is often a lengthy and complicated process. Various political groups, regional interests, and parliamentary alliances all play important roles in determining cabinet positions and government priorities. Every delay in forming a complete government can slow decision-making, postpone reforms, and create uncertainty among domestic and international investors. When Parliament returns to work after a recess, legislative activity resumes, allowing pending issues to move forward. If the remaining ministers are confirmed as expected, it would represent another step toward greater administrative stability. A fully functioning cabinet generally improves the government's ability to implement policies, negotiate international agreements, approve budgets, and coordinate with institutions responsible for economic development. For followers of the Iraqi dinar, political organization matters because economic reforms rarely happen in isolation. Major financial initiatives usually require cooperation between Parliament, the Council of Ministers, the Ministry of Finance, the Central Bank of Iraq, and other regulatory institutions. When these institutions operate with greater coordination, reform efforts often become more efficient. The planned visit to Washington has also become a point of discussion. International visits by Iraqi leaders frequently involve meetings covering economic cooperation, investment opportunities, energy policy, security cooperation, banking modernization, and financial partnerships. Such meetings can strengthen diplomatic relationships, while also encouraging greater confidence among international investors and financial institutions. It is worth remembering that Iraq has spent several years working toward improving its financial infrastructure. Banking reforms, digital payment systems, anti-money laundering measures, customs modernization, and efforts to diversify government revenues have all been recurring themes within Iraq's long-term economic agenda. Progress in these areas may not always produce immediate headlines, but they contribute to building a stronger economic foundation over time. Many viewers naturally ask whether completing the government before the Washington visit could influence economic decisions. From an analytical standpoint, presenting a unified government can strengthen Iraq's negotiating position during international discussions. Foreign governments and international investors generally prefer engaging with administrations that demonstrate stability, institutional continuity, and the ability to implement agreed policies. This is why observers are paying close attention to the sequence of events, rather than viewing each event individually. Parliament returning to work, confirming the remaining ministers, completing government organization, and conducting international meetings are interconnected developments that together may contribute to a more stable political environment. At the same time, it is important not to overstate what these developments guarantee. Political progress is one factor among many that influence Iraq's economy. Oil revenues, global energy prices, fiscal policy, inflation management, regional security conditions, private sector investment, banking reforms, and monetary policy all play significant roles in determining the country's broader economic trajectory. When discussing the Iraqi dinar specifically, the Central Bank of Iraq remains the primary institution responsible for monetary policy and exchange rate decisions. The bank evaluates a wide range of economic indicators before making policy adjustments. These include foreign currency reserves, inflation trends, balance of payments data, banking sector stability, and overall macroeconomic conditions. Because of this, political developments alone should not be interpreted as confirmation of any specific future action regarding the currency. Instead, they should be viewed as part of a broader picture that may create conditions supportive of continued economic reform, if accompanied by sound fiscal and monetary management. One reason today's news has generated attention is that many long-term followers of Iraq have observed that political uncertainty has historically delayed reforms. Whenever governments remain incomplete or unstable, legislative priorities often shift toward resolving political disputes instead of focusing on economic modernization. Conversely, periods of greater political cooperation have sometimes allowed reforms to move forward more efficiently. This does not necessarily mean every reform succeeds immediately, but it generally creates a more favorable environment for implementing policy decisions. Another important consideration involves investor confidence. Domestic businesses and international companies alike often monitor political developments before making significant investment decisions. Investors typically seek predictability, transparency, and institutional stability. A government that demonstrates unity and operational effectiveness may encourage greater business confidence over time. Foreign direct investment can contribute to economic diversification, employment growth, infrastructure development, and technological advancement. While these benefits usually emerge gradually rather than immediately, they represent important components of long-term economic development. The banking sector is another area worth watching. Iraq has continued efforts to modernize financial services, expand electronic payments, strengthen regulatory compliance, and improve integration with international banking systems. These initiatives are designed to increase efficiency, improve transparency, and facilitate legitimate financial transactions. International cooperation often supports these modernization efforts through technical assistance, investment partnerships, and institutional collaboration. High-level meetings with international counterparts may therefore contribute indirectly to financial sector improvements, even if no major announcements occur immediately. For those specifically following exchange rate discussions, it is essential to distinguish between structural reforms and currency valuation. Structural reforms involve strengthening institutions, improving governance, modernizing banking systems, enhancing transparency, and promoting economic diversification. Currency valuation decisions, however, involve separate monetary considerations that depend on comprehensive economic assessments. Sometimes, public discussions merge these two topics together, creating unrealistic expectations that every political development automatically results in an exchange rate adjustment. In reality, economic policy making is considerably more complex. Iraq's economy continues to rely heavily on oil exports, making government revenues sensitive to changes in international energy markets. Stable oil income supports budget implementation, infrastructure investment, and foreign reserve accumulation. However, long-term economic resilience also requires expanding non-oil sectors including agriculture, manufacturing, tourism, logistics, technology, and private enterprise. Government stability can help advance diversification strategies because ministries responsible for investment, planning, industry, agriculture, transportation, and commerce can coordinate their efforts more effectively once leadership positions are fully established. Another factor worth considering is public confidence. Citizens generally benefit from governments capable of delivering public services efficiently, managing infrastructure projects, supporting employment initiatives, and maintaining fiscal discipline. These domestic priorities remain essential regardless of international meetings or external partnerships. If Parliament successfully confirms the remaining ministers within the anticipated timeframe, observers will likely shift attention toward the government's policy agenda following the Washington visit. Future announcements regarding investment agreements, economic cooperation, infrastructure financing, energy development, or financial sector modernization could become areas of interest. Nevertheless, responsible analysis requires waiting for official statements before drawing conclusions. Financial markets and national economies respond to confirmed policies rather than assumptions alone. For Iraqi dinar followers, patience remains an important principle. Economic reform typically unfolds over months and years rather than days. Significant institutional improvements often occur gradually through legislation, regulatory adjustments, administrative modernization, and sustained implementation. History demonstrates that durable economic progress generally results from consistent policy execution instead of isolated political events. Therefore, today's developments should be viewed as one step within a broader reform process rather than a final destination. Looking at the short-term implications, the immediate focus will remain on whether Parliament completes the ministerial appointments as expected, and whether the government enters the Washington meetings with a unified leadership structure. Successfully completing these objectives could reinforce perceptions of political stability and administrative readiness. Markets often respond positively to reduced political uncertainty because predictability assists business planning and investment decision-making. Even so, any measurable economic effects would likely depend on subsequent policy implementation, rather than ceremonial milestones alone. From a longer-term perspective, continued progress in governance, institutional reform, banking modernization, and economic diversification could strengthen Iraq's investment environment. Sustainable development requires ongoing commitment to transparency, fiscal responsibility, regulatory consistency, and effective public administration. International relationships may also play a constructive role by supporting trade, investment, financial cooperation, and technical expertise. Strong diplomatic engagement can create opportunities for economic collaboration while encouraging confidence among global financial institutions. At the same time, challenges remain. Iraq continues to balance fiscal priorities, infrastructure needs, employment objectives, energy sector development, and private sector expansion. Addressing these challenges requires coordinated policy making across multiple institutions. For viewers interested specifically in the Iraqi dinar, the most reliable approach is to monitor official communications from Iraq's monetary authorities, alongside verified government announcements. Speculation frequently circulates on social media, particularly during periods of heightened political activity. Responsible analysis requires distinguishing between confirmed facts and unverified claims. Today's developments are certainly noteworthy because they suggest that important political processes are moving forward. Parliament's return, anticipated ministerial confirmations, and upcoming international engagement represent meaningful events within Iraq's governance calendar. However, their ultimate significance will depend on the concrete policy outcomes that follow. As always, experienced observers recognize that economic transformation is rarely defined by a single announcement. Instead, progress is measured through cumulative improvements across governance, financial regulation, investment climate, infrastructure, institutional capacity, and macroeconomic stability. That broader perspective allows investors, analysts, and interested observers to evaluate developments objectively, while avoiding unnecessary speculation. Every confirmed reform contributes another piece to Iraq's long-term economic story, but each development should be assessed on its own merits. Over the coming weeks, attention will likely remain focused on parliamentary activity, government organization, official statements surrounding the Washington visit, and any subsequent announcements concerning economic cooperation or reform initiatives. These developments deserve careful observation because they may provide additional insight into Iraq's policy priorities for the months ahead. Ultimately, today's news highlights the importance of political stability as one element supporting broader economic development. Completing the government, strengthening institutional coordination, and engaging with international partners may create conditions that support future reforms. However, responsible analysis also recognizes that sustainable economic progress depends upon continued implementation, effective governance, prudent monetary policy, and long-term structural improvements rather than any single event. As always, we encourage viewers to stay informed through credible sources, evaluate developments with patience, and avoid making financial decisions based solely on speculation or unverified online discussions. Monitoring official announcements, economic indicators, and institutional reforms provides a far more reliable basis for understanding Iraq's evolving financial landscape. Thank you for watching today's update. If you appreciate balanced, responsible, and factual coverage of Iraqi dinar developments and Iraq's economy, be sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you never miss our latest analysis. This content is provided for informational and educational purposes only and should not be considered financial, investment, or trading advice. Always conduct your own research and consult a qualified financial professional before making any investment decisions.